Meghan Markle has been in the spotlight for years now, but here's how she was just canceled.
The studios that gave her opportunities expecting cooperation and professionalism instead encountered what they describe as the most difficult and destructive talent they had ever attempted to work with.
Internal messages from 5 big Hollywood studios are now backing up what insiders have been whispering about for months. According to documents our investigative team reviewed, Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, is quietly being shut out of major projects across the entertainment world. Several sources say doors in Hollywood are closing fast, and the mood behind the scenes is tense. No major studio is reportedly lining up new work for her after a pattern of clashes that executives describe as extreme diva-style behavior. There are also claims of contract problems, and one Warner Brothers executive wrote in a leaked email that it was the most toxic professional conduct he has witnessed in 37 years in the business. Tonight, we break down the moments insiders say wrecked her Hollywood momentum, along with the financial hits studios claim they took along the way. Reports point to millions in losses and testimony from 43 crew members and executives who insist the situation burned serious bridges inside film and television circles. Much of this story has stayed quiet because several studios reportedly signed tight, non-disclosure agreements to avoid legal blowback. Still, people with direct knowledge say documents point to disputes tied to about $8.7 million in alleged contract issues and questions around her production company, sparking what some describe as a quiet industry-wide freeze on future deals. Some insiders say this story has been kept quiet because it clashes with the public image Meghan has often presented. But many people behind the scenes believe the full picture deserves attention, especially when it comes to why major Hollywood studios have reportedly stepped away from working with her. For someone who once spoke about changing the entertainment industry, the reaction from powerful studios has raised serious questions. Before digging into the specific claims, there is one question any skeptical viewer should ask. How do we know this reported blacklist is actually real and not just rumors spreading around Hollywood? The first reason comes from internal emails that reportedly came from executives at Universal Pictures, Warner Brothers, Netflix, Amazon Studios, and Paramount+. These messages cover an 18-month period from January 2024 through June 2025, and several of them directly mention Meghan Markle by name while describing incidents that allegedly pushed studios to avoid future collaborations. The emails reportedly include detailed metadata like timestamps, corporate server routing data, and official signature blocks that help confirm where they came from. In addition to that, multiple people familiar with the situation have shared their accounts. 8 studio executives agreed to speak privately, along with 3 talent agents who once represented clients that worked with Meghan. There are also statements from 12 production crew members who say they witnessed tense moments on set. Beyond personal testimony, there are also claims of financial paperwork connected to the situation. Sources describe documents such as settlement agreements, breach of contract demand letters, and production budget reports showing unexpected cost increases linked to delays and conflicts. There are even accounts payable records that reportedly show payments made to crew members who left projects early after disputes over workplace conditions. Fourth, records from the Hollywood Creative Directory connected to Meghan's production company, Archewell Productions, reportedly show a surprising situation. As of January 2025, the database listings indicate 0 active development deals, 0 projects listed in pre-production, and 0 confirmed distribution agreements. This stands out because public statements from the company have suggested that several projects were moving forward in different stages of development. Fifth, entertainment attorneys who specialize in talent and studio contracts were asked to review parts of the documentation tied to these claims. According to their analysis, the pattern described in the records and testimonies resembles what the industry often calls a soft blacklist. That term does not mean there is an official ban or formal rule against someone. Instead, it describes a situation where decision-makers across studios quietly avoid working with a person after hearing repeated warnings or negative experiences shared behind the scenes. There are no video recordings showing every moment that allegedly contributed to this situation, and Meghan's representatives have declined to comment despite several requests for a response. Still, supporters of the investigation say the combination of documents, witness accounts, financial records, and legal analysis paints a strong picture of what may be happening inside Hollywood circles. To understand how things reached this point, many observers look back at Meghan Markle's earlier career. The Duchess of Sussex, who previously worked as an actress before stepping away from the industry in 2017 after marrying Prince Harry, began exploring a return to entertainment around 2020. At the time, she spoke publicly about creating projects that she believed could reshape the industry and bring new voices into the spotlight. Studios that reportedly offered Meghan opportunities expected a smooth partnership and professional teamwork. Instead, some executives claim the experience became one of the most difficult collaborations they had ever dealt with. The material gathered during this investigation falls into 7 different categories of concern. Each issue on its own might raise eyebrows, but together insiders say they created a serious pattern that made future partnerships extremely unlikely. The first category focuses on contract disputes and missed work commitments. Production schedules connected to a Netflix series Meghan was reportedly involved in show that she was expected to be available for 48 scheduled filming days between March 2023 and November 2023. However, attendance records reviewed by sources suggest she appeared for only 19 of those days, with production coordinators documenting a series of medical and personal explanations for the absences. One medical note submitted by her representatives reportedly mentioned conditions such as dehydration that required hospital care, food poisoning, and severe migraine headaches. At the same time, some crew members claim they later noticed her attending social gatherings and restaurant outings during certain dates when she had reportedly said she was too unwell to work. Those claims have not been publicly verified, but they were reportedly discussed inside production circles. The contract involved in the project reportedly included penalties for unexcused absences, with fees listed at $15,000 per missed production day. According to internal cost reports described by sources, Netflix allegedly absorbed around $435,000 in direct penalty costs, along with an estimated $1.2 million in extra expenses tied to crew delays, location fees, and rescheduled production timelines. Supporters of the investigation say the pattern raised serious questions within the studio about reliability and professional commitments, while others argue the situation may have been more complicated than internal reports suggested. The second category focuses on claims about how production staff and crew members were treated during certain projects connected to Meghan. According to documents reviewed by investigators, 17 crew members provided sworn statements describing what they say was a pattern of tense interactions, difficult demands, and moments where staff felt they were blamed when expectations were not met. One camera operator described an incident where he says he was criticized for more than 10 minutes over a lighting setup that Meghan believed created an unflattering shadow on her face. The director of photography reportedly explained that the lighting matched the approved shot list, yet the moment still caused a heated exchange on set. In another situation, a wardrobe assistant claimed she lost her job after Meghan complained that a dress she had previously chosen and approved suddenly looked terrible, with the assistant blamed for not warning her about the choice. A production assistant also described an unusual request involving the daily craft services menu. According to the account, Meghan allegedly asked for the food selection to be replaced every day with specific organic items from a vendor located in Los Angeles. The assistant said this required driving about 47 miles each way to collect the food, which was sometimes later rejected because it was considered not fresh enough. Across the collected testimony, several witnesses described moments of shouting, thrown objects such as scripts or water bottles, and situations they felt were embarrassing for staff members in front of coworkers. In total, 12 crew members reportedly left the production before it finished, forcing the studio to hire and train replacements mid-project, which sources say added roughly $320,000 in extra production costs. The third category focuses on disputes over creative control and what industry insiders call contract overreach. In most television and film agreements, the exact level of influence a performer or producer has is clearly written into the contract. Sources familiar with these deals say Meghan's agreements gave her the usual producer input on scripts and casting decisions within certain limits, but the final authority still belonged to the showrunner and senior studio executives.
The evidence we have compiled falls into 7 major categories, each of which independently would raise serious concerns, but collectively paint a picture of systematic professional misconduct that made continued collaboration impossible. The first category involves contract violations and work refusal. According to production schedules obtained.
However, internal email exchanges between Meghan's representatives and studio leaders reportedly show repeated attempts to push beyond those limits. According to the messages, she allegedly requested major script rewrites that would dramatically change the direction of certain projects. There were also reported disagreements about casting choices that did not match the original character descriptions or audience research used by the studio. In several situations, sources claim she refused to perform scenes exactly as written unless the dialogue was adjusted to better match her personal preferences. One email chain described by insiders shows a tense moment between a Netflix executive and Meghan's legal team. In that exchange, the executive reportedly explained that her request to replace the showrunner would go against the contract terms and could not be approved. The response from her attorney included a warning about possible legal action, mentioning breach of the implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing. According to financial records described by sources, Netflix spent about $173,000 in legal costs responding to the dispute before the legal threat was eventually withdrawn. To some studio insiders, these documents suggest a series of intense disagreements over creative direction rather than the smooth partnership that had originally been expected. The fourth category focuses on financial questions and reported expense issues connected to Meghan's production company, Archewell Productions. The company received major attention after signing a reported $40 million multi-year content deal with Netflix announced in September 2020 to create original programming. The agreement was expected to cover documentaries, feature films, scripted series, and children's content. However, according to industry tracking and analysis of publicly available Netflix reports, the company delivered only one 6-episode documentary series over roughly 4 years. Aside from that release, there have been no other fully completed projects tied directly to the deal during that period, even though development funding had reportedly been provided in advance. Entertainment analysts estimate that Netflix may have invested around $12 million in development expenses, producer payments, and project options connected to ideas that ultimately did not move forward. But the issue that raised even more eyebrows inside industry circles involves certain expense reports that production accountants reportedly reviewed. According to those records described by sources, some charges tied to the deal included $78,000 in wardrobe purchases, reportedly listed for Meghan's personal use rather than production costumes. There were also about $42,000 in travel expenses connected to trips that sources say were not clearly linked to an active project. Additional charges allegedly included $91,000 in public relations and media management services that some insiders claim should have been personal expenses, along with $56,000 for office space and furnishings that crew members say appeared to support personal staff more than active production work. According to financial reviews described by sources, these questionable expenses reportedly added up to around $267,000 that Netflix accountants flagged as charges that did not clearly belong in the production budget. When the company reportedly requested repayment, Meghan's business team argued that the spending counted as normal producer-related costs. The dispute eventually led to a settlement where Meghan agreed to repay about $135,000, reportedly to close the issue and avoid a formal breach of contract legal battle. The fifth category focuses on claims about special accommodations that some production staff say went far beyond typical industry requests. Budget documents and contract writers connected to her projects reportedly listed a number of high-end requirements that added major costs to production schedules. Among the requests described by insiders was a private 40-foot luxury trailer, which reportedly cost around $8,000 per week to rent and required special location permits to place on set. There were also claims that a 4-person security team was required at all times, costing roughly $3,200 per day, along with fully organic catered meals prepared by a specific chef at about $900 per day. Additional requests allegedly included a private hair and makeup team dedicated only to Meghan, which some crew members say created scheduling problems for the rest of the cast and required studios to hire duplicate teams. Documents also mention the constant availability of a Mercedes S-Class vehicle with a driver for transportation needs. Altogether, production insiders estimate these accommodations could add close to $19,000 per filming day to budgets. Sources say that when one producer suggested scaling back some of the arrangements to match other cast members and reduce costs, Meghan's representatives warned they might invoke a contractual clause and accused the production of creating a hostile work environment. According to sources familiar with the situation, the studio eventually removed the producer from the project and paid him a $215,000 severance settlement to avoid a legal dispute. Some insiders say this decision sent a strong message inside the production world. Challenging Meghan's requests could create professional risk for staff members, while the studio chose the faster path of settling the issue quietly. The sixth category focuses on claims about media strategy and efforts to shape the public narrative around these productions. Several executives say Meghan's team would sometimes share positive updates with friendly media outlets, describing projects as running smoothly and claiming she was widely admired by cast and crew. At the same time, some studios reportedly say they were privately dealing with complaints from crew members, rising budgets, and schedule problems. According to these executives, whenever outside media began reporting on production trouble, Meghan's representatives would respond by accusing the studios of leaking damaging information. In some cases, they allegedly warned that legal action could follow if confidentiality agreements were violated. One Warner Brothers executive described receiving a formal cease and desist letter from Meghan's legal team demanding $2.4 million in damages for what they claimed was reputational harm tied to news reports about production delays. The executive reportedly insisted that the information had not been leaked by him or anyone inside his department. Warner Brothers ultimately spent about $97,000 in legal costs responding to the accusation. Sources say the conflict ended with a written agreement in which Meghan withdrew the claim and agreed not to pursue similar accusations in the future. In return, the studio reportedly chose not to move forward with its own counterclaims connected to missed production obligations. Insiders who reviewed the situation say this pattern created increasing tension between Meghan's team and major studios. By early April 2024, the situation reportedly reached a major turning point when Meghan entered talks with Amazon Studios about a limited series project that could have paid around $3 million for her role as both star and executive producer. By September 2024, the Netflix partnership with Archewell Productions reportedly reached its official conclusion. After several years of development expectations, the deal ended with only one completed project delivered, which had been released earlier. For a partnership that once generated major headlines, insiders say the final outcome surprised many people inside the entertainment business. By December 2024, industry tracking sources said the Hollywood Creative Directory showed no active projects connected to Archewell Productions. The listings also showed no new development agreements with major studios or streaming platforms, raising questions about what had happened behind the scenes during the previous few years. Then, in January 2025, leaked emails between several studio executives reportedly revealed private discussions about future casting and production decisions. In those conversations, Meghan Markle's name was mentioned, while executives talked about avoiding new collaborations, suggesting what some insiders describe as a coordinated industry cooling toward future projects. When you step back and look at the timeline, supporters of this investigation say a clear pattern begins to appear. This was not just one disagreement or one tense production moment. Instead, they describe a 5-year path that moved from early excitement about new partnerships to repeated disputes, missed expectations, and finally a broad reluctance from studios to continue working together. According to these sources, the situation affected budgets, schedules, and relationships with crew members across multiple projects. Because of that, they argue the outcome reflects a pattern repeated over several studios and several years rather than one isolated event. Now, the bigger question becomes what this situation means moving forward, not only for Meghan's career, but also for how studios manage similar conflicts in the future. Under California Labor Code Section 1050, coordinated efforts to block someone from finding work can sometimes be considered unfair business practices. However, legal experts explain that this rule is usually applied when a person is being targeted for protected activities such as union organizing or whistleblowing. Situations where several employers independently decide not to hire someone because of documented workplace conflicts or contract disputes are typically viewed very differently under the law.
Or treatment of production staff and crew members. We have obtained sworn declarations from 17 crew members who worked on various Meghan Markle projects describing a pattern of verbal abuse, impossible demands, and retaliatory behavior toward anyone who failed to meet her expectations. One camera operator describes being berated for 11 minutes because a lighting setup created what Meghan perceived as an unflattering shadow on her face, despite the director of photography explaining that the lighting matched the approved shot list.
Entertainment attorneys who reviewed the situation say Meghan would likely face major legal challenges if she attempted to prove that an illegal blacklist exists. According to these experts, each studio involved appears to have its own documentation tied to specific contract disagreements, crew complaints, and financial losses that could justify their individual decisions about future projects. Another key point attorneys highlighted is that communication between studios during reference checks is generally considered normal business practice. When companies share professional experiences about past collaborations, it is usually categorized as due diligence rather than a coordinated conspiracy. From a contract law perspective, the bigger concern could actually involve potential liability tied to earlier agreements. Legal specialists say that settlement deals signed with studios, including the one reportedly reached with Netflix, often contain strict confidentiality clauses that prevent both sides from publicly discussing the details of disputes. Because of those clauses, some attorneys believe Meghan would need to be extremely cautious about public statements regarding these conflicts. If she were to publicly accuse studios of unfair treatment or discrimination tied to those projects, it could potentially trigger claims that confidentiality terms were violated, which might lead to demands for repayment of settlement funds or even additional legal damages. Another possible path discussed by industry observers involves Meghan shifting her focus to projects outside the United States. She could explore opportunities in places like the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, or parts of Europe, where her royal background still attracts public curiosity and media attention. This approach might allow her to continue presenting herself as an entertainment producer and bring in some level of income through smaller productions. However, analysts point out that projects in those markets often come with much smaller budgets and less global prestige compared to major Hollywood studio deals. Some insiders also believe that if similar workplace conflicts were to appear on international productions, the same concerns could eventually follow her career abroad as well. In that case, critics say the strategy might extend her time in the industry temporarily, but would not necessarily rebuild long-term success. A third scenario that attorneys sometimes discuss would involve launching an aggressive legal campaign against several studios. In this situation, Meghan could hire a powerful legal team and file lawsuits against companies like Netflix, Amazon, Warner Brothers, or others, claiming discrimination, blacklisting, breach of contract, and reputational harm while seeking very large financial damages. The goal of such a strategy would be to pressure studios into settlements or to make the legal battle expensive enough that companies might consider working with her again just to end the conflict. But legal experts say this path would carry major risks. It could require breaking confidentiality agreements and could lead to a full legal discovery process where emails, financial records, and witness testimony from many people involved in past productions would be examined closely. Scenario 4 involves reputation rebuilding through charity and public service work. In this situation, Meghan would accept that major Hollywood studios may not offer new opportunities for a long time and instead focus on repairing her public image through visible humanitarian efforts. Supporters of this approach say it would mean dedicating years to meaningful charitable projects, community programs, and advocacy work that show consistent commitment rather than short appearances for publicity. If handled carefully, that strategy could slowly rebuild trust with audiences and industry decision-makers. Over time, it might open the door for smaller media projects connected to those causes, which could eventually grow into larger opportunities. However, analysts say this path would require serious patience, a genuine long-term commitment to charitable work, and a willingness to accept a much lower level of income and public spotlight for quite a while. Scenario 5 centers on continued denial and placing blame on outside forces. In this version, Meghan would reject the idea that her own actions played any role and instead continue publicly arguing that bias, unfair treatment, or jealousy inside the industry caused studios to distance themselves. That approach could involve interviews, public statements, and media appearances where she presents herself as a target of systemic problems within the entertainment business. While this strategy might help maintain support among some followers and protect her personal narrative, industry experts warn it could also deepen the divide with major studios. Companies are often reluctant to partner with someone who openly criticizes them in public. It could also create legal risk if any statements were viewed as violating confidentiality agreements or unfairly damaging the reputations of people involved in earlier productions. After reviewing everything, the reported events over the past 5 years, the financial pressure surrounding the Sussex brand, and Meghan's public responses to criticism, some analysts believe Scenario 5 currently appears the most likely short-term path. That would involve continuing to challenge the narrative around her Hollywood fallout while placing responsibility on outside forces. Over time, however, observers say the situation could shift toward a mix of Scenario 2 and Scenario 4, especially if financial pressure grows and new opportunities become harder to secure. The aggressive legal strategy described in Scenario 3 appears far less likely unless attorneys were convinced there was a strong case to pursue. Many legal experts suggest that if the evidence discussed here were examined in court, the process of discovery could become extremely damaging and unpredictable. Meanwhile, the idea of a complete exit from public life, Scenario 1, seems unlikely based on Meghan's past career choices and public ambitions. A pivot toward independent or smaller productions may eventually emerge as a fallback option if other opportunities continue to close. What happens next will ultimately depend on the choices Meghan makes and how the entertainment industry responds in the years ahead. If you found this breakdown interesting, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this with others, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your opinion matters, and the conversation around this story is far from over.